Hello, everyone. My name is Dr. Alon Burstein. I am a visiting assistant professor in the Department of Political Science at the University of California, Irvine, and I am here to give you the daily summary of what has happened in the last 24 hours in the war between Israel and the Hamas movement. I will note that if you want to see what has happened in the first days of the war, in the initial moments of the conflict, please click on any of the links in the first comment below to either look at previous days or to look at larger summaries of the history of the Gaza Strip. So currently, it is the eve of October 9th, 2023 in the United States. It is the morning of October 10th, 2023 in the Middle East. We are talking about 60 hours, 3 days since the initiation of the largest terror attack in human history occurred. So, I'm still going to start by talking about the aftermath of the initial attack. I'm then going to talk about the ongoing fighting that has gone on the last 24 hours, and I'm going to conclude with some of the political ramifications and what has been going on politically in the last 24 hours. Looking towards the ramifications from the initial attack, the death toll in Israel is continuing to rise. There are now over 900 confirmed deaths. This includes civilians and military personnel, and that number is expected to rise. There are also 2,700 people injured. The reason that number is rising is both because people are unfortunately dying from their injuries, as well as the fact that bodies are literally being collected from the streets. There are still police and emergency services and the military that are combing fields and combing cities and finding bodies in houses, finding bodies in streets, finding bodies in the fields as a result of the initial attack. The numbers right now are speculated to be well over 1,000 deaths. This remains to be seen. That is in terms of the initial attack. In terms of the fighting that is currently going on, 60 hours after the initial attack, Israel is still encountering Hamas terrorists within its own territory. Several times over the last 24 hours, there have been reports that Israel has managed to completely clear the territory from Hamas infiltrators, and then another gun battle sprouts up in a different city, in a different town. It is by now speculated that it is possible that these are new infiltrations that are coming in either through attack tunnels or through other holes in the fence. It is currently unclear. The latest reports is that the government has stated is that the military and the police have managed to regain control entirely over Israel's territory. However, I will say that has been reported 3 to 4 times throughout the day, so it remains to be seen. Meanwhile, in terms of the actual fighting within the Gaza Strip, Israel has amped up its retaliations. It is currently carrying out a lot of aerial bombings against different targets. It is reported to have carried out 200 raids on the Gaza Strip as of last night. Within those raids, the Palestinian Ministry of Health reports that there are over 700 Palestinian deaths, of them roughly 100 to 120 children. These are unconfirmed reports at this time, since the Ministry of Health does not know exactly what's happening on the ground. Hamas continues to launch rockets and missiles from the Gaza Strip into Israel, and a continued escalation on both sides. Meanwhile, in the north of Israel, there have been several instances of organizations from southern Lebanon that are answering Hamas's call to join the fray. Hamas, one of its leaders, Salah al-Aruri, has worked for many years to create his vision of what he calls the multi-front attack against Israel. Attacks coming from the Gaza Strip, from the West Bank, from the north, from Lebanon and Syria, and also hoping to be joined by Arab Israelis. He has called on all organizations to try to join this current round of violence. So far, there has not been massive organizations that have actually adhered to the call. What has happened is there have been several smaller Palestinian organizations within southern Lebanon that have launched mortar fires against Israel. These did not result in any serious damage. Israel retaliated against these organizations and against Hezbollah outposts. In Israel's retaliations against Hezbollah outposts, 3 Hezbollah members were killed. In response, Hezbollah launched several missiles and carried out a cross-border insurgency in which a division commander in the Israeli army lost his life. However, it is important to note this is far from Hezbollah's actual force. This is far from Hezbollah joining the fray. Hezbollah is reported to have 100 to 130,000 missiles and rockets that it could fire into Israel, and it is not doing that yet. So it's unclear what's going to happen. However, right now, Hamas's call is not being answered by these different organizations, but things remain extremely tense in the north of Israel. Moving on to some of the political developments that have happened. It is now confirmed that there are roughly 130 hostages, men, women, children, soldiers, infants, and elderly people, that were kidnapped by Hamas and the Palestinian Islamic Jihad in the initial attack. The Palestinian Islamic Jihad holds 30 of these people, Hamas holds the rest. There are reports that Qatar is trying to negotiate to arrange a quick prisoner swap between Israel and the Hamas movement, currently focused on Hamas releasing the women and children that were kidnapped in the attack, and in turn Israel will release the women Palestinian prisoners and Palestinian minors that are in Israeli jails. Both sides have claimed that these rumors are not true and that no such negotiations are happening at this time. There have been no demands stated by Hamas or the Palestinian Islamic Jihad other than general, all the hostages will be held until all Palestinian prisoners are released. So right now, that's not going anywhere. Meanwhile, Israel has received a lot of support from the international community. The most material support is coming from the United States, which is not only sending armaments, it is actually sending also some warships into the area and has issued threats against Hezbollah and Iran, suggesting no one else should join the fray. Anyone else who tries to join into the fight and attack Israel may have to deal with an American retaliation, and it has even been stated that that retaliation may end up targeting the Assad regime in Syria, which I'm not going to get into the whole geopolitical mishmash of the Middle East, but this is a way of threatening a strong ally of Iran and Hezbollah in hopes that no one will dare open another front against Israel from the north. Meanwhile, in Israel, there are negotiations about forming a unity government because the country has been vastly divided over the last 10 months with lots and lots of protests against Netanyahu's very hawkish right-wing government and some specific policies it has been trying to enact. Right now, those negotiations are taking place. It is unclear what will happen. The last bit of information, I will say, is in terms of trying to figure out how this attack occurred. So far, still, no one really knows where the failure was. Egypt, in the meantime, has suggested that a week before this attack, it called the Minister of Defense and or Minister of Intelligence, depending on which report, called the Israeli Prime Minister and said something big is coming from Gaza. You have to pay attention to Gaza. However, that the Israeli Prime Minister and the Prime Minister's office said that their focus right now is on the West Bank, meaning or alluding to the pressures from Netanyahu's right-wing government to focus all attention on settlements in the West Bank as opposed to the Gaza Strip. The Israeli Prime Minister's office vehemently rejected these allegations and no such warning happened. This will be the subject of much research over the next coming years. That is the current status of where we are, and I will be back tomorrow.